Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wealth Preservation Podcast. I am here again, as always, with my co-host, Josh Saunders. Josh, how's it going?
I am doing great, Mark. We're excited to have Polygon Market on. Allison and Derek, we're excited to talk marketing. We're going to get into marketing strategy and kind of hopefully dive into a little bit of what their secret sauce is and what they do for clients and how they really tell stories and build brands. So we are excited to talk about that. But Mark, hey, do a quick recap of the first episode.
Yeah, so last episode we really and actually I should probably let you guys do the recap because it was really how you guys went from the artistic one who was always going doing artistic things and the driven career man who was at his steady misery job, and how you give us a 2-minute breakdown of your guys' launch of Polygon.
All right, so basically the story was Allison was the born entrepreneur, always kind of wanted to do her own thing. I was the person that thought that having a job was just part of, life, and you had to do it, and you might be miserable, but it was just part of what you had to do. We finally came to a realization that that's not how we wanted to live our lives, especially after we got married, and we decided to join forces, and that was almost 4 years ago. And so, the rest is history. We're having a great time. We're building something that we're really proud of, and it's grown a lot, and a lot more to come.
Yeah. Well, if you haven't listened to that, everyone go back and listen to their origin story, because it really is two very different people, very different kind of outlooks on their future. But they're making this business work. They're killing it. They've had clients go, they have small mom and pop clients. They have some clients who are now IPO level, and we have our first TikTok influencer. So that's super cool.
We love it.
Well, really excited to dive into what you guys do, and I did peruse your website a little bit, and I did so I kind of broke some stuff down, and I want to get into things that our entrepreneur listeners can go and actually do, right? So things that they can sink their teeth in. So let's start with branding, right? So why is branding so critically important, and why do people need to focus on that instead of just saying, hey, I'm just going to be super good at my job and my reputation will carry me?
I can start this. So I think branding is like an umbrella, right? And there's a lot of things that people think. A lot of people, you say, hey, these guys have great branding. They go like, oh yeah, their logo's great. Their font's great. Their color's great. That's a part of it, definitely. But building a brand and having good branding is all about building a culture. You want people to really buy into what you're doing. And so, yes, like you can have a great color scheme, you can have a great logo, but if all your employees hate you, if there's no synergy on the team, if not everyone is striving towards the same goal, your brand is going to suffer. And so a lot of what we do is we take who they already are, what direction they want to go, and we build a voice around their goals and mission to further encapsulate all that. And a lot of that is having to talk with employees and having to talk with people on the team and to learn more, because you talk to CEOs, you talk to marketing directors, they're so in the mud of all of this every single day. You almost need outsiders to kind of tell them who they are, and we help kind of dig that answer out of everyone. And so a lot of what we do is, yes, we build the colors, we build the brands, we build the logos, all that kind of stuff, but it means nothing if there isn't a culture to back that up.
Yeah, it's a lot of relationship building. I mean, that's a lot of marketing too, is relationship building. But I think the main point of branding is to make an emotional connection with the audience that you're trying to connect with, or the people that you're trying to connect with. And that's not just done visually, that's also done through your voice, through your intentions, through your core values. And yeah, so it's an all-encompassing thing. And I think because it's the essence of like who your company is, that's why it's so important.
Yeah, so kind of, we'll kind of get into it. What is the kind of your guys' process, and what do you guys do? I mean, clients, I've been around enough marketing and run enough marketing that people come to me like, I need to make more, clients, no, not clients. How do I do that? And you kind of have to work them through a process, right? You just don't, be like, oh, if you do X, Y, Z, it happens automatically. What's kind of the process that you guys use?
Yeah, it's been interesting because a lot of the misconceptions about branding and marketing and what that is and what that entails is so the spectrum is huge. I feel like there's so many people that come to us thinking that they need one specific thing, but then when you analyze or like you take a peek under the hood, maybe it doesn't make sense for them to have a video because they have zero marketing presence or they don't even have a website. Like, so I think first step in our process is always some sort of consultation or brand audit or discovery piece, because we actually can't really help you unless we know enough information. And I can't
Right.
tell you how many times we've had people come to us asking for something, willing to pay the money, and we're like, no, I would never advise somebody to pay X amount of dollars a month for social media marketing when maybe you don't have the branding down or you don't have a place to point them to on a website.
Yeah. What were some of those instances where people thought they wanted something and they didn't? Like, you give an example of that?
We worked with an air conditioning company, building them a website a year or two ago, and they wanted to create a video for YouTube to basically like drive clientele, but they had 0 videos on YouTube, and their plan was to have 1 video. And I was like, okay, is there a plan for follow-up videos? Are you guys going to keep creating content? Do you have a social media presence? They're like, well, no. And it's like, so you think this 1 video is going to just all of a sudden have millions of views and clients are going to be rolling through the door? It's like, that's not how it works.
Right.
And so a lot of what we do is there's with how many resources we have out there today, people think that there's like, we need to have this, we need to have this, we need to have this. Like, that's what everyone's doing. But in reality, every business kind of you have to create the recipe for each individual business. And so a lot of that has to do with us learning who you are, who's your competition, how do you differ from them? What's your differentiating factors? And then from that, we build a custom scope of work that would help them in whatever their goals are trying to be in terms of marketing. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the hard parts of running an agency sometimes, is that it's very difficult to create packages that fit every single business. Like, most of what we do is pretty damn custom because every business is different. Every business owner is different.
Right.
And, all the structures are different. So a lot of what we do depends on this discovery phase that we start out every single project with, where, like Allison had mentioned, there's an audit that takes place. Let's take a look under the hood. What's your website doing? Are you generating traffic? Where's the traffic coming from?
Mm-hmm.
How can we build more traffic? And so we basically, through that phase, we're able to develop a scope of work that best fits their needs and goals moving forward. And then we move into execution side of it.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to this, and it's a little off branding, but I just want to ask it. When you have someone who comes to you and says like, hey, I want you to make this YouTube video for me, right? And you have that discovery of like, wow, you are so not in from a business owner's perspective, like, that seems like low-hanging fruit that a lot of people will be like, sure, I'll make a video, I'll invoice you, you'll pay me money, I'll be out of here, and you'll get nothing out of it. What's the internal dialogue that you guys have to just say no to that and just lose out on money?
Sometimes we end up having more of a discussion and trying to steer them in the right direction, because their success is just as important as our success. Because if they're not successful, they're not going to come back to us. If nothing amounted to this video, then why would they come back to us? And I
It
think
makes
that's
us look bad.
Yeah, it makes us look bad. It makes us look like we don't know what we're doing because there's this weird expectation. So a lot of what we do too on the consultation side is like setting those expectations.
Yeah.
Because another example of that would be when people come to us and say, I want 10,000 followers. And it's like, why? For what reason? And
Why not
they
20,000?
Yeah. And they're like, for legitimacy. And it's like, if you need 10,000 followers to prove that you're legitimate, then we're probably not a good fit,
We got other problems.
Yeah.
Take this money you'd spend on marketing, go to therapy, have someone legitimize your existence there. You're fine. You don't need 10,000 followers.
Yeah, or take a tenth of that and buy your followers, then fine, and ruin your account.
But to reiterate your question, Mark, like, you're right. There is like this idea of low hanging fruit. It's like, hey, this person's willing to pay us, 10K, 15K, 20K to build this video. But, Allison said it. Most of our business is based on referrals. So if we build this video and it doesn't do well, they're not going to go, well, we tried and Polygon did a great job, it just didn't work. They're going to go, Polygon led us in the wrong direction. I'm not going to tell anybody about Polygon. And so like, it's part of our job to make sure the clients understand that like this isn't going to be your saving grace. This one thing isn't going to take you to the next level. It's going to be a multitude of things, and I'm here to tell you what we should start with and what we should follow up with. Not just like, hey, thanks for the 10 grand and we'll see you never. I want them to do well just as much as they do.
Yeah.
And then when we do accomplish those goals, they tell all their friends, and we get a multitude of referrals based on that. So like it's not really in our best interest to do work just to do it. There needs to be a reason behind it and a goal to achieve. And so you can go on Upwork or Fiverr and find a million people that'll do a million different things and not ask any questions.
Right.
But most of those times, the finished product doesn't get you what you thought it would.
Right. So let's kind of go that part of branding and telling stories, right? You guys, Allison, you kind of said earlier you like to tell great stories. How do you incorporate that into your marketing piece and kind of get the clients to see how important the story? Because they might not think that they have a story, right? But to pull that story out and make it come alive, and what's your guys' process behind that?
It's actually really difficult a lot of the time because a lot of our clients that come to us for marketing understand that they don't understand it. Like they
Sure.
get that they don't get it. So we had a bit of a challenge with one of our clients recently who this tale as old as time. Like when I was a server, we'd always get people that were like, I used to be a server. So like I know like what it's like, and like
Right.
we get that a lot too, where there's like, I used to work in marketing, so I know, but like it's not the same as it used to be. It's relationship building, it's storytelling. It's not just promo, promo, promo. And like
Right.
that's actually like full transparency has been kind of a difficult challenge to try and implement this element of storytelling while having the client just trust that you know what you're doing in
Right.
building those relationships. And a lot of that is like we have like a questionnaire when we first start out, like what is your story, why are you passionate about what you do, tell me some things about your business that people love, like what do other people say. And that's the
Right.
kind of stuff we like to try to bring out when we're creating content, or if they're comfortable being on camera, giving them some more pointers on showing their faces. Like having a face to be able to attach to the brand is also
Yeah.
really important. um but I will say it has been a challenge because some people get it and some people don't, and it's just hard to
Yeah.
teach somebody how to be a good storyteller or get that component of it.
And because you're dealing with people who either used to be in the industry and are just buying AdWords or promos, right? And then you got people who just don't get it, right? So what's probably your biggest misconception that you run into with clients where they just, it's like their go-to thing and you're like, this is like my pet peeve, stop bringing this up, people?
I mean, that's such a hard question, but the biggest thing that I get on the sales end is many people just come. They're like, we need more. We need more sales. We need more people walking through the door. Whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a startup looking for more leads, they all just say more. And typically, our follow up is like, more of what?
Yeah.
It's like we need to know who it is or what it is that you want more of, and then we can build a story around that. Because this idea of marketing to the masses just doesn't work anymore. Like, there's people that can do well in billboards, but if you think a billboard on the freeway is going to drive your business, like it's really not it. You have to figure out who it is. This is why part of our questionnaire process is building client personas. Like, hey, give me 3 of your desired clients, not like 3 clients that you like are okay about. Like, give me like 3 individuals that you really would love every single client to fall inside of. And then we build 3 stories that would capture that attention. And so that's a lot of what we do is special. And it doesn't necessarily mean like niching down, but it just means like being very specific and including some sort of like qualification when it comes to leads, sales, any sort of thing like that. And so you can be very specific who you're talking to.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I would say I get really frustrated, I think, when people come to us trying to solve, kind of similarly to what Derek says, but like trying to solve all their problems for them, when like I feel like marketing's this like magic thing that everybody thinks, if I have marketing, then I can do it, or like everything will come to fruition. But it's like, if you actually, and Mark, because you're on TikTok, if you actually went viral on TikTok for like a product, could your business actually sustain that? Like there's so many different components, or like, which is why discovery is so important, that I just feel like the one pet peeve I have maybe about our industry in general is that it is one of the most difficult things to try and educate people on,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
because it's such an anomaly.
Yeah. So going back to that, though, how it has changed so much, right? So how have you guys had to morph, right? I mean, TikTok didn't exist 4 years ago, right? So how,
Yep.
or name, social media platform or styles, banner ads, right? That was like the big thing, what, 12, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever. Who does banner ads anymore? But anyways, all that stuff has kind of changed so rapidly. How do you guys stay in the forefront of that? And when a client comes to you, you're like, hey, that was a good idea like 2 years ago. That's not going to work today. How do you guys kind of build that out? Help them realize that.
I mean, we are fully engulfed into everywhere where marketing takes place, right? Whether it's social media, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's books and things like that. Like we try and keep ourselves as educated as we possibly can, but because we live in it every single day, we see it everywhere and we kind of dissect it. We almost like reverse engineer things and go like, wow, like that worked. I wonder why. And then we dig deeper and go like, well, they're positioned like this, so they were reaching people like this, and they were able to do it with this voice and this tone. And so because we're kind of engulfed in all of it, we have this ability to reverse engineer a lot, at least try. And we do things like funnel hacking, like, okay, how do these people keep these people moving through the funnel? What are we thinking of using a video here? And then they do like a questionnaire here. And like, so you're consistently trying to just learn what everyone else is doing. And I'll tell you, every month there's something new,
Right.
and that's the interesting part. And it's
And
our
that's
job
why,
to stay up on all those trends. Yeah.
yeah, and it's hard. So for us, it's really important to establish some sort of client trust, or have the client trust in us and our ability that we know a little bit more, well, a lot more in terms of what's going on, especially because based on their goals, if they can identify their goals clearly, whatever they're coming to us for, like maybe they originally say, I want somebody to take over my Instagram account. Well, are your leads coming from Instagram? Is your audience even on Instagram? What kind of like content can you even deliver us? Because that also dictates what kind of content we're going to kind of curate for whatever platform. And we actually realized with one of our clients recently that LinkedIn seems to be working a little bit with just testing out some of the ways that we're posting stuff, or trying out stories on LinkedIn. And that's been kind of interesting too. So I think also setting the expectation that it is constantly experimental is also really important. And the fact that we're willing to try and experiment based on what we know and what we've seen work in the past, and based on all these other factors with your goals, is also really crucial. It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah. How have you dealt with a client that was like, basically you just have a bad product, right? Like a restaurant that, gets Yelp reviews that the service is terrible and the food's not that good. They're like, oh, hey, if we redesign the menus, that should fix it. And you're like, no, I don't think we can help
Maybe
you
don't
yet,
serve
right?
frog burgers.
Yeah.
Turns out frog burgers aren't a hit.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting question because on one hand, it's not our job to change people's businesses,
Sure.
right? And so like we have to walk that thin line, and we've definitely like you've had those conversations before, and it doesn't matter what industry, and when you kind of overstep and they go like, well, wait, like back off, dude, like this is my thing. And in those cases, you have to just be like, okay, you know what? I don't think we're a good fit.
Right.
Because like, we've had clients in the past where they have a restaurant and they're serving, things that don't necessarily line up with who they are. And it's very difficult to market those things when you're serving, I don't want to call these people out, but like, things from different ethnicities and different cultures. And it's like, well, what are you guys? What are you trying to figure out? And there's moments where we've kind of taken the low hanging fruit and be like, we'll figure it out while we're doing it. And then like 3 months in, we go like, you know what? Like, it's too broad. It's too out there. People aren't understanding it. We've had to part ways. But, we typically try and be pretty transparent with our clients and tell them exactly what we think, because otherwise we're not really doing our job as marketers.
Sure.
We're supposed to be the outside perspective that can look in and be like, I think you're missing this. I would lean more into this. But if they're not open to that feedback, like we're just going to be going around this vicious circle of like trying to convince each other of stuff that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So Allison and I would say, are more transparent than most people when it comes to our clients. and it works the majority of the time, but sometimes it doesn't align. So it's just figuring it out.
Well, and on the figuring it out standpoint too. So I mean, time. Everyone wants more sales, and they also want it to be now, right? So what should entrepreneurs and what should businesses be expecting when it comes to timeline, right? When you sit down with a client, what are you guys saying? Like, hey, like, we're not going to fix everything, but we're also not going to do it in the time that you want. Probably here's a good expectation for us.
As it pertains to marketing, it is always the long game. And even if you have an explosion of like engagement, just be prepared that that was like just one win out of the entire thing. So it's definitely a long game, and that's what is really important to understand about social media in particular and marketing in particular is whether you're doing an email campaign, whether you're doing, a launch campaign, whether you're posting to TikTok, whether you're posting to Reels, whatever you're doing takes time, effort, energy, and something that worked once could potentially work again, but I would not be surprised if it didn't. Like, you never ever know based on the algorithm, based on the time of day, there's so many other factors that go into it. And I think that we as just a society want instant gratification, especially when you have things like Amazon Prime. So when you're thinking about marketing and you're spending a hefty amount, you expect results right away, but that's just not the reality at all.
Yeah. I think you guys should do a bunch more goat yoga videos. I think those are coming back.
Goat yoga?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
As you can see, Josh and I are obviously big yoga advocates.
Yes, big yoga people.
As long as it's in a brewery. So, because we people do think very transactionally as far as like, hey, I'm spending X amount on marketing, so you personally, how long did it take you to build up your TikTok following and your I mean, you kind of have yourself as a testimony, right? So
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. How long did that take?
Derek, how long do you think it took me to get to 34,000 followers? 8 months?
I mean, probably roughly that.
But the
and
thing
that was
I was
posting
doing
almost every day.
Every day, twice a day sometimes. Like for a good 3-month chunk, I was posting every single day, 2 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's
those
ridiculous.
Are not photos; those are videos.
That's video content. It's not really sustainable unless that is your job. And when we got real busy and like life happened, I stopped creating content, and it gets you have like mini blow ups. I mean, I think TikTok is a little different, but it takes a lot of time and energy and effort. So like mine, 8 months is a quick time frame for like such a big influx, but the amount of time it took for me to create that much content and post it regularly was kind of absurd.
I don't think, and I've experienced it a couple times, but I still sometimes it takes a long time to create good content. It really, or even mediocre content. Really, I mean, it just takes a lot of time. And I'm always wowed by people that post a ton and do put up great content. I'm like, man, do you ever sleep? Because I don't know if I could do that. It's just it's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, there's an idea behind being consistent, and the shitty part right now with especially like personal brand and people out there making content, whether it's on Instagram Reels or TikTok or YouTube, whatever, is that they push a lot of this like quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame because soon everyone's going to be wanting to be their own influencer, and there's just going to be loads of crap going in through everyone's feed every single day, 24 hours a day. But, I think you have to just somehow figure out how to provide value,
Sure.
And the good thing about today is that the production value doesn't always necessarily need to be there. Like you don't have to have a 4K camera. You don't have to have beautiful microphones. Like the lighting doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to provide value. And I think whether, your financial advisors like you guys, or if you're marketers like us, like just find what kind of value you can bring and make that consistent on some level. Whether that's a few times a day, every day, once a week, you'll see gradual growth. And going back to your initial question of like, how do we talk to clients about it? It's like, what we want to see is gradual growth.
Sure.
Along the course. It doesn't mean that, our first week you're going to have an influx of leads or traffic or whatever. It just means like we want to see growth in an upward momentum or momentous and continue that moving forward.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the conversations that we have.
It's kind of interesting though too, because we actually just had a team meeting earlier today, and to kind of echo some points that we talked about in episode 1, changing the structure a little bit of our business, we realized that like so much of what we do, like, because marketing, I think people don't understand what actually goes into it. It's not just content creation and coming up with that, it's strategizing that kind of content. It's being mindful of like response times and responding to other comments, resharing, reposting, and then also like having some sort of element of consistency, experimentation, and then like being able to analyze the data appropriately and then go back to the drawing board and kind of rework your strategy. There's so many different components. And so we actually talked as a team about, I don't know if we can take on clients that aren't willing to provide us with adequate content or content that we can work with, unless now we have to add that as a piece, because that's been a huge problem. Is we can strategize all day, but if we have nobody to create the content, I mean, who's going to do it? Me and Derek? Like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
I can't do this for every single business.
Yeah.
I already do it for ours, and it's taxing, So
Right.
I think there's so many different, facets of marketing that people don't understand, but it isn't super daunting if you can just like stick to one thing, or, like just have your expectations set accordingly as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, like basically pick a platform, make it consistent and go for it from there, and not, be like, oh, today's Instagram, today's Facebook, tomorrow's Facebook. And then you basically have kind of crap everywhere, basically, for lack of a better term.
Right.
Yeah. I wonder if people's social media platforms are eventually going to become like emails, where they're just like, oh, I just scrapped that one, got a whole new one. Like, I just, that's my
It's kind of starting to happen.
Yeah, that's my junk social media.
My junk
I just got a new handle, and yeah, I'm done with that one.
I mean, I know TikTok just recently integrated resumes, so like you can put all of your job listings on there, and they're just using because it's become this platform that people can go and post about what they do and how they do it, and so it's gonna move in that direction. That's for sure.
Well, if it turns into LinkedIn, which notifies me anytime anyone logs in.
Right.
Seriously.
Don't get me started on that.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got 30 notifications, and like, 29 of them are just like, so-and-so shared this. I'm like, I don't care. That's what my feed is for.
Yeah.
I know. I turned off my notifications. It still does that. I was going to say super quick, just to piggyback off of something that Josh was saying about, sticking to one platform. Once you get comfortable on one platform, that's when you can also start to revisit repurposing your content. That's a whole nother piece that I think people forget about, is like, how much content do you have now that you're not even aware of? Like, even FAQs or things that people ask you in emails or clients ask you, that's valuable information that somebody else might want to know, that maybe you're not even realizing you could create a whole video series out of, or a blog post,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and do you I guess go to people and say like, hey, pull your FAQs and start creating content off that, or is that kind of a go-to move there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I mean, if people are asking you questions, you don't ignore that. That's free engagement right there. That's people like straight up asking you questions, or even complimenting you. That means whatever you did was helpful to them in some sort of way, or impactful in some sort of way. Try repeating that process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So real quick, I want to go into some of the nuts and bolts part of it, like talk about website design. But I've been around enough marketing agencies, and good and bad. And the first thing now, they always say is like, you need a new website. Is that kind of your guys' go-to, or? And I'm not knocking it, because a lot of people have terrible websites, but is it, how important is it today, and and that sort of stuff?
I would say it all depends on what you're working with, right? Like we've had clients that have websites that were made in 2004. At that point, it's probably time to get a new site.
Yeah, for sure.
Like half of your stuff isn't working. The copy's outdated. Everything's outdated. So we take it on a site by site basis.
Yeah.
it's definitely a benefit on our end when we can start with a clean slate.
For sure.
Because a lot of developers work differently. The way they write code, the way they overlap code,
Yeah.
the way different things are integrated. Like to go in and build a website on top of somebody else's build can be very complicated.
Yeah, it
So,
almost costs more than redoing it from scratch almost, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so many great platforms now. Like WordPress has thousands of templates that you can start from, and like much of the functionality is already included, and so you kind of just like integrate your branding and different things like that. And Squarespace is like very user friendly. So to answer your question, it's done on a case by case basis. We want to figure out like what's the website's goal? Like, is this just going to be your digital business card? Is this going to be someplace that drives leads? Do you want to capture emails? Like what is the goal of this? Why is it here? What's its purpose? And so once we understand that, we'll have a better idea of like what we need to do in regards to a facelift, a full rebuild, a platform change, e-commerce, you name it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and again, it goes back to the business and what they're trying to build and what niche, or I use the word niche, or niche, but whatever they're going after. But sometimes it's good and bad, right? You need it or you don't need it, but I like that case by case basis of some people have great websites, but they don't. They're more of they're more Instagram, Facebook people, and their website's just kind of like this offshoot thing that basically so that people can look them up on Google. That's all they need.
Yeah,
right. And some people need like some of our clients who have IPO'd in the past, like their sites are massive, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long. Whereas like we have some e-commerce clients where it's like all you need is one page with your products listed underneath it. Have them be able to add it to the cart, simplify the whole thing because they're only selling 2 products.
Right.
So it's all done. It's all done in accordance to what the intention is behind the website. And so that goes back to what we talked about last episode, where it's like we need to perform an audit to really understand like what are we trying to do here? I don't want to build anything that's not necessary. And I don't want to, it's not our job either to take every ounce of capital that you have saved up and put it in this website if it's not necessary.
Right.
And, I mean, as well as merging all that branding into the website, because talking about continuity, I mean, if people associate you with a certain emotion or anything, and you go to your website and it's completely different, I mean, that's I think that's also some people lean too hard on one thing or the other, and they're like, they'll figure out the website, and it's like, I'm sorry, if you're on a website and it sucks, you're like, I guess I don't need this product. Next.
I would almost say like go with a website before you go with a logo sometimes, because I personally don't think that it's imperative for everybody to have a logo. If you have a product, yeah, definitely. But like if you're a consultant, I don't know if it's like super crucial right off the bat until you expand, or like I think your first order of business should probably be a website and social presence or something like that.
Well, and also like on the flip side of that, we've experienced this with one of our clients right now. Like he tells people about their business, and what he expects them to do is go to their web browser on their phone and look up the website. When in reality, the first thing they do is they go to Instagram. They go check the Instagram first. So it's like there's all you have to realize, like, where is your audience going first?
Sure.
Make sure that lines up, and then have a website that reflects that. So again, it's case by case basis. They're all going to be different depending on what industry you're in and how that stuff all works. But it's our job to make sure that we understand what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish, and reflect that, whether it's through social media, content creation, website, branding, so on.
Yeah. So for anyone who's feeling a little convicted now and is just like, oh, yep, I know that my website sucks and I probably should revamp it. I mean, where should people just start? I mean, should they go out and find a consultant like you guys, or should they, are there some very base things that they can go do to semi-patch it together until they have a little bit more intention of really revamping it?
It's so funny because I don't know what Derek's going to say, but I feel like the longer we've been in this industry, I'm such an advocate. Like we've honestly become consultants. Like we've gone more the route of consultants because we realized like there were so many times we were trying to automate what we were doing a little bit more to make it our business more scalable. But then we realized like no matter how many times we try to create a a package or a tiered package system, which does work for some businesses, especially maybe if you work in like the small business industry or whatever, we're just realizing that so many people have wildly different goals, like different budgets, of course. Like there's just so many different pieces of the pie and puzzle that I feel like my first instinct would be to talk to like a consultant or professional in marketing and branding specifically. But I don't know like if this is a thing. Like I know that there are marketing and branding consultants, but I don't know if like that's being pushed as much right now. This is just like a gut feeling because I feel like how many times, Derek, have we had rescue missions? Like I can't tell you how many times we have like saved clients from like a website that was super faulty or like somebody who just left them high and dry. Like I feel like we've had way more horror stories about people thinking they need something based on what they've like consumed on social media and then trying it out and then it doesn't work out to their benefits because they actually should have never gone that route in the first place.
Sure. It's basically
Well,
being that back to the penny wise, dollar foolish type thing, right? Like, oh, I can figure this out myself. I mean, Mark and I could list hours of clients that have done stupid stuff because they just don't want. They're like, oh, I can do this myself. I'm smarter than everybody else. And there are the people that can do that or get lucky. But you're like, hey, be smart enough to bring in smart people, right? I mean, I tell my boys all the time, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room.
Right.
And, you know, you should be like that in lots of things. You know, that's not saying don't be good at stuff. Just, you know, work with smart people that are good at what they do and pay them for
and
it.
I think that to add to that, it's like, how much time is it going to take you to get this thing done versus how much time could you use that you would have allocated that to like generate something else, right? So it's like a web developer can build this thing out in 10 hours. It's going to take you 30 or 40. You know, imagine having that 30 to 40 hours to go generate, you know, more sales, more content, whatever that is. Like, just figure out what your time is worth.
Right.
And, you know, if you're a designer, go for it. You know, do your thing. Like, if
Sure,
you own a design business and you really like you don't think anybody else can replicate that, do it. But, you know, if you're a restaurant, focus on making good food, focus on delivering good customer service, and just hire someone to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so it all depends on who you are, but I always recommend using a professional because the people that have tried it themselves, they typically come back to you later and are like, I couldn't figure this out and it looks like shit. Like, and we can fix it in a matter of hours. You know, so that's how I see it.
And real quick, you know, because anyone who is about ready to go try it themselves, what's the most common thing you see people doing that just totally backfires? Right? Is it the website? Is it their social media? Is it just like, hey, you have literal errors where buttons don't work? I mean, what's the most common thing you see where people are like, yeah, this is where I throw in the towel. I'm done.
I think websites typically be, time obviously, but I think websites are typically the thing that people think they can do, especially going to like a Squarespace, like a really user friendly platform. But just because there's something there that looks okay, when you start putting in your colors and your fonts and, you know, moving things around, it can quickly get out of hand. You know, and one of the things that makes a good designer, and Allison can speak more to this because this is her bread and butter, is knowing when to stop. Right? I don't know if you guys have ever messed around in Canva or in any of these, like, you know, Photoshop, whatever. Some of the best designs are the ones that have very little going on, right? And you can tell it's done by a good designer. And then you go find an amateur designer and it just feels like a bunch of clutter because they didn't know when to stop. You know, they didn't know when it's good enough. And that's how we find that in websites a lot. They're like, I took a stab at it, and you look at it and you're like, man, like this, nice try, but it just didn't work. And typically it's only a few little tweaks and then everything's fixed.
Yeah.
So, but it's usually look and feel kind of stuff.
Sometimes that can also be kind of a red flag for us personally, because we've had a lot of clients in the past that they know specifically what they want, but they still can't articulate it. And a huge problem with, I think, designers in general, not just us, but like most of my design friends, whether they're graphic designers or web designers, it's the one thing that is so subjective and personal to somebody that they think they know, especially a client that like has a lot invested. If they're like a mom and pops, typically are way more invested because that amount of money is really important to them. And so when they put that money in, they want their input in, but like sometimes they can't back away. And like when you get to the point of talking about pet peeves, when you're getting to the point of like, wait, try this in this spot, try this in this spot, it's like, bitch, I'm the designer. Like, no, like I tried that and it looked ugly. And like in the very beginning stages of when I was designing and I was just doing that for people, I can't tell you how many times I would try out every possible which way, but as an experienced designer now, I know, and I'm like, they would go, "Well, can you try it here?" And I'm like,
No.
"I know." Like, and then I would say, like, "I tried that already, but I'll do it for you anyway." Now I say, "Fuck no." But like they would look at it and go, "This looks terrible. Go back to what it was before." And it's like, "No fucking shit." Like I think that's a huge issue with a lot of clients now or people now. So anybody out there who is so overwhelmed by their own thoughts, take that into consideration and realize that you're spending so much time and energy on something that you know nothing about,
Yep.
that you should actually have no opinion on other than I like it or not quite, you know?
Well,
Yep.
well, it's a boost of confidence for me because Derek said that a good designer knows when to stop, and I guess I'm a good designer. I know when to stop, which is right when I start.
Right. You just
Yeah.
never start.
Just
I
never
mean,
start.
I got about 1 second into web design. It was just like, Erica,
Oh
more
yeah.
the creative one. I was like, yeah, I can't do this. Nope, nope, no.
Yeah. It's tough though, because we all want to be part of it. You know, we all think we have something going on, and I don't want that to shy anybody away from giving it a try. But just
Mhm.
know when you're wasting time.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
is this productive or not? And just try and separate the two.
Right. So, kind of, if you were going to give a client, if a client was going to, be introspective, or a potential client, and hey, I'm going to run through this checklist in my head, what would be the checklist that you would give them so that they could run through that and be like, hey, I need to call Polygon Marketing? Kind of what would it be for for them?
I think they need to have a sustainable business at that point. You know, like there's a lot of people that call us and they think that marketing is going to save all of their problems. You
Right.
know, it's just going to be their one savior. We're finally going to get our face out there, and then everything's going to be fixed. It's like, well, no. If the systems aren't in place, you could get all the leads you want. Allison said it earlier. It's like if you got 1 million views on something, like could your business even sustain it?
Right.
So the checklist is. So we developed this thing not too long ago, and we hate part of it, but part of it is true. It rings true. It's like if you get an owner that calls you, typically that means that they don't have enough going on. You know, I want to talk to CMOs. I want to talk to marketing directors. I want to talk to those people because they've been given a budget that allocates for this particular project.
Right.
When you're talking to a business owner, a founder, and this isn't always the case, but in many cases, these people, if they're the founder of the business, they're the owner of the business, they are too much into the weeds, and this means way too much to them.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult. We obviously don't shy people away immediately because of that, but I need to learn more as to why you think you need so much invested in this certain piece. Like, do you have the sales to back it up? Do you have the restaurant to back it up? Do you have the people that are going to come in? Let's do something that reinforces all that, not like let's give up on everything and put all of our marbles into this basket. So a lot of it has to do with that. When it comes to a checklist, it's difficult. It's more about self-qualifying through a conversation, through a consultation, that sort of
thing. Which is super, it is an interesting point about, the business owners and like, hey, if the business owner is super involved, not a good sign is most entrepreneurs are control freaks and they want to be involved. And I mean, for anyone listening, go back to our last episode. Allison, you were the control freak, who wanted to know everything, right? So just breaking that away and saying like, hey, I know that you're in this, again, you got to be careful with that boundary, but trust people who do this for a living, and don't, we've had some experience with that too, where someone in the company, not ours, but is really hyper focused on like, nope, it's got to be this shade of blue and that, and it's just like, just let the smart people do smart things.
Yeah, trust the professionals.
Right. Yeah.
Well, especially because at that point, you're not just wasting your own time, but you're wasting everybody else's time. And that's
for sure.
Time is money. And I think that's why people, when they're overwhelmed, call professionals, is because they want to maximize their time. And so it's really, really important for those people that are feeling that, overwhelmed to be able to step back, again, get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Like we're going to be making mistakes along the way at all times, like everybody. So if you and your business are so worried about the way something's going to come across, or you want to change your mind or whatever, it's like just make the decision, go for it, and then you have the power to change it moving forward. But just
Right.
like get out of your own way. I think
For
that's
sure.
one of the biggest issues we have.
So Josh, basically what I'm getting is, all people need to do is, find their branding and iron out all of their branding, and then make it fluent with their social media, and make sure they can support all that with sales, and make sure it's congruent with their web design, and there's no flaws, and then they're always on the current trends.
Yeah.
That's it.
Pretty easy,
That's
right?
it. Like, pretty straightforward.
So easy.
Done.
It's
Done.
right. It's managing your expectations. Everything's always a journey. And I think that's why we're so hell bent on doing this like consultant piece or like the advisory piece, because there's a strategy element based on every business and like where they're at in their business, what they have, what their budget is. And if they don't have the means to create everything, but they maybe have a daughter or an employee that can help manage social media, like utilize what you have in front of
Sure.
you and then go from there. So it's like we're always going to be failing. So
Well, and I wanted to add one last thing to your question, talking about how people like can get a little bent out of shape about like what they had in their head versus what's being shown to them. And I think you have to be careful when working with designers and developers and people in creative spaces, because what you want is you want an enthusiastic team. An enthusiastic team is going to deliver the best possible work. And so if you're being that overbearing client who always has demands, who wants everything changed, who never is happy with anything, your team is going to quickly start to hate this project. They're going to be resentful. They're going to be insecure. They're not going to be confident in their own work. And that's the last thing you want out of your design team. And so what it should be collaborative. This should be a fun process. Like we start off every single project with like, the fun starts now. Like, I hope you're excited because we're excited. If I don't have that same like follow-up email at the end when we're offboarding being like, this is great, we love you guys, something went wrong. And typically we're not as happy with the final product. Doesn't mean the client's not happy, but like we as a team are not going to put that on our portfolio piece because we're not proud of it. Yeah. But when we've had projects where we're like fully aligned with everyone, they say they want something, we deliver that, but maybe like the Polygon spin on it, and it takes that next step and becomes great. Like that's the synergy we're looking for, and you should always look for with people in the creative space, because that's when things go right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect.
So, yeah, Josh, I'm going to start meetings like that. Like, hey, I hope you're happy because I'm happy. I'm 3 beers in. We're going to crank this thing.
I love it.
Chug.
Come on,
it's
Derek,
easier said than done. That's for
Derek,
sure.
you got to start the motivational speaking channel, man. I'm in.
I had a podcast for a while, and it was actually doing well. I got to get it. I got to ramp it up again.
It's just on a
on
seasonal
hiatus.
break.
Yeah. It's waiting for season 2. There you go.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, awesome. I think we can, there's definitely a lot in there that people can take. And definitely a lot of, every time we have a podcast like this, basically I leave the podcast thinking like, great, I suck at what I do. Like I have to go I have to go redo all my marketing now, right? You're saying things like, and I'm like, yep, I do that. I'm doing that.
Well, wait, I want to talk to that, Mark, because I remember when we first started, you reached out to me and you were asking like, what can we do and what can we, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to build this. And then I started seeing you build content and you were putting out podcasts. And it's like, dude, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and honestly, and I'm not bullshitting, I'm not blowing smoke. Like, I think you guys are doing something really cool here. And if you pay attention to the trends right now are all about personal brands, like small companies who have their face out there, are willing to kind of be vulnerable in front of people and really, really trust that what they're doing will find someone like them.
Yeah.
And I think you guys have done a great job, even just like putting a podcast out there and talking about these things. Like, it's important, man. And I think everyone's moving in that direction. People are losing faith in the bigger corporations, Fortune 500 companies. They want to support local. They want to support people. And so if you can be a person within your own brand, whether it's an agency, financial planners, whatever that is, if you can somehow insert yourself, you're going to find people who like you. You're also going to find people who don't, but that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Right.
the idea is that you're talking out there. You're putting yourself out there, and people resonate with that more than ever today.
Yeah.
So I think
I
what
mean,
you guys
showing
have
up
done,
authentically and imperfectly is more important. Like just putting yourself out there is already a step above, like
Yeah.
that. So I think like it's hard when you're in it because maybe you're like we only have like vanity metrics, right, to view things off of. So like, it didn't get that many views or it didn't get that many likes, but you really don't know just by putting yourself out there how much it's making an impact by just being your like full authentic self, like
Right.
however
Yeah.
that shows up and however that is,
Yeah. That is funny you say that because we actually just got an email from Garrett Woodruff. If you're listening, shout out to you. But thanks for listening. But it was someone that we didn't even know listened or was involved in. Literally, was like, "Hey man, love your podcast. You guys do a great job." And you're like, "Oh wow, thanks."
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right. There's our other listener.
Yeah, there's our other listener.
I mean, it sounds silly, but like, take Joe Rogan for instance, right? He started his podcast in like 2009. He was like, all I want to do is like talk to my friends. I have no idea what it's going to be. I'm going to talk to interesting people. He had zero expectations. Now the dude just sold it Spotify for $100 million. It's like, all he did was consistently show up, be himself, be silly, be weird, talk about aliens, talk about, the weirdest shit you can possibly think of. But people like his podcast more than they like his comedy.
Right.
It's like, there's this weird world, and he's like a UFC commentator. It's like, who is this guy? He's so many different things.
Yeah.
But he showed up authentically. He showed up on video, and now he's probably more influential than presidents that have been, part of the United States. Like he is the most. I mean, it's crazy. It's just
crazy.
That's the world we live in now. That's the world we live in now. And if you're out there and you make yourself available, you can. There's no ceiling as to what your personal brand can become.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring up Joe Rogan too, because someone posted the other day, like if you could, I think it was a tweet, like if you could switch networks with anyone, who would it be? And I was like, Joe Rogan, because that dude literally knows everyone in any industry. I mean, it's like if you were like, hey, I'm training a Rottweiler to do ballet, Joe Rogan would be like, oh, I interviewed someone on my podcast for that. Like he literally just talks about the most random stuff.
Talks about the most random shit, but like he's interested in it. It's all real. Nothing that he does is fake. Like, and that's why, hate him or love him, you can't argue his authentic self. Like everyone knows who he is. And he gets a lot of like clickbait and stuff because he says some dumb shit, but like he's never not being true to himself. And I think that's like a something that people can take when they're thinking about starting their own personal brand or starting their own business. Like just get out there and be yourself and do good work, and you'll continue to build upon that.
Yep. Love it. Well, Mark, I think that's a perfect transition with the speed round right there.
I was going to say, that was an awesome last final note before we went into the speed round.
I love it.
I feel like I sound like a preacher. I really don't want to come off that way.
You got the hair. Good. I mean, you got the hair of Jesus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got that going. All right, we'll do the small pause for Jay. Books on marketing. Right. So if you were to go tell our listeners, hey, if you want to get educated, or if you want to get a leg up, go read this book.
Story Brand.
Story Brand's a good one.
It's like perfect for like entry level people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked The One Thing. It's not necessarily about marketing, but it's about productivity and kind of, again, getting out of your own way. Just how can you focus on one thing that'll like make more of an impact or propel you forward?
Oh, I like it. Good stuff.
Building a story brand and The One Thing.
This one's kind of for Allison, but something that a business can do to improve their social media presence on a kind of daily or proactive basis. What is that?
Show up, but also don't discount the engagement that you're getting. Like, I think that, again, we get hung up on vanity metrics. Don't forget about the audience and the community that you're curating. So making sure that you're starting conversations and continuing conversations and touching those people, like, that's one thing. I think that you don't have to be on social media all the time, but I have so many conversations and I have created so many relationships with people via DMs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't discount that engagement. Absolutely. All right, shifting off the business stuff. If you could go on vacation with anyone, dead or alive, where would you go? And who are you taking? And based on our ending there, I think I know who Derek Thomason's taking.
Well, I'm going to take Joe Rogan. No,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, Allison and I both, but I'm a huge Anthony Bourdain fan. So I would love to just go to like any restaurant, anywhere. You know, I think that would be awesome. Just to experience the thing that he did. It'd be cool.
I love it. Allison?
I would go, even though I've been there a million times, I'd go to Tokyo with probably Casey Musgraves.
I like it.
Country artist for you guys if you don't know.
Okay, I was like,
she's a Nashville girl though, so you should know.
Well, she also loves Tokyo, so.
Oh, there you go.
I agree. It's awesome.
Learning something new every day. Casey Musgraves. My wife probably knows who it is.
Yeah, probably.
So if you, actually no, Josh, it's your turn.
Yeah, quit cutting me off there, Mark. Jeez, me trying to
sorry.
hog all the spotlight. So we'll start with Derek though. Where do you go to unwind and find inspiration? Like, what's kind of that relaxed spot? No, there you go. I like it.
So I'm a terrible, guest bedroom guitar player. So that's where I unwind. That's kind of where I find my little sweet spot, especially because if my brain's overwhelmed, if I pull that out, it's like the only thing I can focus on. So that's kind of my unwind spot.
Nice.
And also the golf course. I love the golf. That's my happy place too.
Perfect.
And then Allison.
Yeah.
Honestly, it depends on my mood. So
let's say you're happy.
Yeah, it's just like being in nature, being alone, literally just being alone is enough. But sometimes I like to dance, I like to draw, I like to pretend that I play music. It literally, being creative is like the one thing that,
on second thought, I probably should have said when you're angry. That way, if I ever saw you in that setting, I'd know to just back off.
Yeah.
You're like, if I'm angry by a river, I just know, okay, River Allison, I'm just going to back off. You can have your space. Don't throw me in.
You're right, Derek. It's probably the same thing. Being creative just helps me out of just whatever.
Perfect.
Well, I love it. That was a really good episode, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. So again, let our listeners know how they get a hold of Polygon Market and and if they need to connect with you guys.
Yeah, you can go to our website if you guys like to have a consultation with us. There's actually a place where you can sign up, and we do free 15-minute consultations if you want to learn more about us. But you can find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook at Polygon Market. So
perfect.
And polygonmarket.com.
Polygonmarket.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Well, I'll do a quick disclaimer here. Anything that's said here cannot be taken as tax, legal, or financial advice. If you liked anything you heard here, call Allison, call Derek, get some good advice, take your marketing to the next level. And so, Allison and Derek, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.